The grand palace of Velcaria Prime stretched toward the purple sky like a mountain made of crystal and steel. Inside the massive throne room, Emperor Carvos sat on his chair of carved stone, watching the doors with cold eyes. Around him stood his greatest warriors, their armor shining under the bright lights. They were huge creatures, each one standing at least 3 meters tall, with thick muscles and sharp claws. Today was important. The humans were coming to answer his challenge. Carvos smiled, showing his pointed teeth. Those weak little creatures from Earth had dared to refuse his demand for surrender. Now they would learn what happened to those who defied the Velcari Empire. Princess Lyra stood in the royal gallery above the throne room, looking down at the scene below. She was young for a Velcari, barely into her adult years, but she had been trained in war and politics since childhood. Her father had taught her that strength was everything. The strong ruled, the weak served. That was the natural order of the universe. But lately, Lyra had been wondering if that was really true. She had read reports about humans, these strange beings from a distant world. They were small and soft compared to most galactic species. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Yet somehow, they had survived conflicts with 3 different alien races and won each time. How did they do it? The great doors opened. Ambassador Jiwan walked in first, a human woman in formal dress. She moved with calm confidence despite being surrounded by warriors who could crush her with one hand. Behind her came another human, and this one made Lyra lean forward with sudden interest. He was not impressive to look at. Compared to the Velcari warriors, he seemed tiny. He wore simple black armor with no decoration. No medals, no symbols of rank, nothing to show who he was. His face was quiet and still, like a pond with no wind. He carried weapons that looked strange to Velcari eyes, some kind of projectile throwers and several knives. The warriors in the throne room laughed when they saw him. This was Earth's champion. This small, plain-looking creature. It was an insult. Emperor Carvos would crush him like an insect, but Lyra noticed something the others did not. As the human walked forward, the palace guards moved back slightly. It was not a big movement, just a small step. But it was there, and when she looked at the human's eyes, she felt a chill run down her spine. Those eyes were not afraid. They were not angry or excited. They were just watching, calculating, like a predator studying prey. Ambassador Jiwan stopped before the throne and bowed her head slightly. Not too much, showing respect but not submission. She spoke in perfect Velcari language. Emperor Carvos, I bring Earth's answer to your challenge. We do not seek war with your empire, but we will not surrender our freedom. Therefore we send our champion to face yours in honorable combat, as is your custom. Carvos leaned forward. And this is your champion? He gestured at the quiet human in black armor. This is Taman, Jiwan said simply. More laughter from the Velcari warriors. Taman said nothing. He just stood there, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes moving slowly across the room. He was counting exits, Lyra realized, noting weapon positions, studying the layout of the throne room. Even now, in what should be a peaceful meeting, he was preparing for combat. Very well, Carvos said. He was clearly amused. Since you have shown the courage to answer my challenge, I will honor our tradition. 3 days from now, your champion will face General Drexar in the Grand Colosseum. If your warrior wins, we will negotiate. If he loses, the Emperor smiled again. Well, there will be no Earth left to negotiate with. The doors at the side of the throne room burst open. General Drexar entered, and even the other Velcari warriors stepped back to give him space. He was massive even by Velcari standards, nearly 4 meters tall, his body covered in ritual scars from hundreds of victories. In his hand he carried an energy blade that hummed with deadly power. That blade had killed more enemies than anyone could count. Drexar looked down at Taman. The human had to tilt his head back to meet the general's eyes. For a long moment they stared at each other. Then Drexar laughed, a deep booming sound that echoed through the hall. This is what Earth sends? I have fought children more dangerous than this creature. Taman's expression did not change. He did not look angry or afraid or insulted. He simply looked at Drexar the way a scientist might look at an interesting specimen. Then he spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but clear. 3 days. I will be ready, that was all he said. Then he turned and walked out, following Ambassador Jiwan. The Velcari warriors watched him go, shaking their heads and laughing. But Lyra noticed that the palace guards did not laugh. They watched Taman leave with careful eyes, and they looked relieved when he was gone. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She kept thinking about the human champion. Something about him bothered her, but she could not figure out what it was. Finally, she went to her private computer and searched for information about this Taman. What she found made her blood run cold. There were reports from all over the galaxy, military files marked with the highest security levels, battle records, mission logs, and in every single one the same name appeared: Taman, the Reaper of Proxima, the Ghost of Station 7, the Silent Death. Lyra read about the Battle of Proxima Station, where one human had held off an entire pirate fleet long enough for civilians to evacuate. She read about the Siege of Arcturus, where Taman had infiltrated an enemy fortress and destroyed it from the inside, saving thousands of lives. She read report after report of impossible missions completed, overwhelming odds defeated, enemies who never saw him coming until it was too late. One report included security footage. Lyra watched as Taman moved through a hostile ship, taking down enemies with terrifying efficiency. He never rushed. Every movement was precise and controlled. He did not waste a single motion. It was like watching a machine, except no machine could be that adaptable, that creative in finding solutions. In another video, she saw him training. His speed was incredible, faster than should be possible for any organic being. But it was not just speed. It was the intelligence behind every move, the way he seemed to think 5 steps ahead of everyone else. Lyra found a comment in one military report that made her hands shake. A Velkari commander who had faced human forces wrote, "Do not engage the one called Taman. If you see him, retreat immediately and call for heavy support. He is not like other humans. He is something else entirely." As the sun rose over Velkaria Prime, Lyra sat at her computer, staring at the screen. Now she understood why the guards had moved away from Taman. They had recognized him. They knew what he was capable of. Her father's warriors thought this would be an easy fight. They thought Drexar would crush the human in minutes. But Lyra knew better now. She had seen the truth in those cold, calculating eyes. She had read the reports. She had watched the footage. General Drexar was about to face something he had never encountered before. Not a warrior who relied on strength or size or traditional honor, but a human who fought with every advantage he could find, who never stopped adapting, who saw battle as a problem to be solved rather than a contest of strength. Lyra thought about warning her father. But what would she say? That she was afraid of a human half her size? That the reports and videos scared her? He would laugh at her the way his warriors had laughed at Taman, so she said nothing. She went through her daily duties, attended her lessons, smiled when appropriate. But inside she counted down the hours until the duel. And in her mind she saw those cold eyes watching, calculating, preparing. 3 days suddenly seemed like no time at all. The Grand Colosseum was filled with noise. Thousands of Velkari had come to watch their champion destroy the human warrior. They cheered and shouted, confident in their victory. Music played from huge speakers. Vendors sold food and drinks. It was like a festival, a celebration that had started before the fight even began. Princess Lyra sat beside her father in the royal box, the best seats in the entire Colosseum. Emperor Carvos looked pleased, waving to the crowd. He had no doubt about the outcome. How could he? General Drexar had never lost a fight. 300 duels, 300 victories. Many of his opponents had died. The rest had been broken, never able to fight again. But Lyra felt sick to her stomach. She had barely slept for 3 days, haunted by the videos she had watched. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Taman moving through enemies like death itself. She wanted to warn someone, but who would listen? Everyone was so sure this would be easy. The announcer's voice boomed across the Colosseum. "Citizens of the Velkari Empire, today we witness the strength of our people. Today General Drexar will show these humans that we are the supreme power in the galaxy." The crowd roared. Drums began to beat, loud and rhythmic. The gates on one side of the arena opened, and General Drexar walked out. He was even more impressive in the bright daylight, his armor polished to perfection, his energy blade crackling with power. He raised his weapon high, and the crowd's cheers grew louder. Then the opposite gates opened. Taman walked out alone. No music, no ceremony. Just a quiet figure in black armor, carrying his strange weapons. The crowd's cheers turned to laughter and mocking shouts. He looked so small compared to Drexar. It seemed impossible that this could be a fair fight. Taman walked to the center of the arena. He looked around slowly, taking in every detail. The layout, the walls, the positions of cover. Then his eyes moved up to the royal box. For just a moment, he looked directly at Lyra. She felt that same chill she had felt 3 days ago. Those eyes missed nothing. The announcer raised his hand. The rules are simple. Fight until one warrior cannot continue. No outside help! Victory or death. He dropped his hand. Begin! Drexar charged immediately. It was the traditional Velkari way. Show your strength. Overwhelm your enemy with power. He was fast despite his size, closing the distance in seconds. His energy blade came down in a strike that would have cut Taman in half. But Taman was not there. He had moved sideways, not backward. Already he was at an angle to Drexar, forcing the general to turn. The crowd's laughter faded slightly. That had been close. Drexar attacked again, and again Taman avoided the strike. He did not try to block or parry. He simply was not there when the blade arrived. He moved with minimal motion, just enough to survive, never wasting energy. Fight me, coward, Drexar roared. Stop running. But Taman was not running. He was studying. Every attack Drexar made, Taman learned from it. How fast could the general move? How did he recover after a strike? Where were the weak points in his technique? The human was treating this like a test, gathering information. After 5 minutes of this, Drexar was breathing hard. He had been attacking non-stop, putting all his strength into every strike. Taman, meanwhile, looked barely tired. He had been moving, yes, but efficiently, not wasting any energy on unnecessary actions. Then Taman pulled out one of his weapons, a pistol, the Velkari called it. He fired 3 times. The sound was sharp and loud in the arena. Drexar's armor blocked the bullets easily, but he staggered back in surprise. What kind of warrior used projectile weapons in an honor duel? The crowd booed. This was dishonorable. This was cowardly. Emperor Carvos leaned forward, frowning. But there was no rule against using such weapons. The duel was supposed to allow each warrior to fight in their own style. Taman had not expected the bullets to hurt Drexar. That was not the point. He had been testing the armor, seeing how it reacted. Now he knew, and he had forced Drexar to react defensively instead of attacking. The pattern of the fight was changing. Drexar charged again, angry now. Angry opponents made mistakes. Taman had known this, had planned for it. As the general came close, Taman threw something small at the ground between them. It exploded into thick smoke, filling part of the arena. The crowd could not see what happened in the smoke. They heard the clash of metal, heard Drexar shouting. Then the smoke began to clear, and they saw the general stumbling, favoring his left leg. Somehow, in that brief moment of blindness, Taman had managed to strike at the joint of Drexar's knee armor. Lyra gripped the arms of her chair. The crowd's confidence was shaking now. Some people had stopped cheering. They were starting to understand that this was not going to be the easy victory they expected. The fight continued. Drexar was still strong, still dangerous, but now he was hurt and tired. And Taman was just getting started. Every exchange, every clash, Taman learned more. He found the patterns in Drexar's attacks. He discovered which moves the general favored when tired, which direction he preferred to dodge. Taman used the arena itself as a weapon. He led Drexar into areas with loose sand that slowed the heavy general down. He used pieces of broken equipment as obstacles. He fought in the shadows when he could, in the bright light when it gave him advantage. He was not just fighting Drexar, he was using everything around him. An hour passed. The crowd had gone quiet. This should have been over in minutes, but the human was still fighting, still moving, still adapting, and Drexar, for the first time in his life, was struggling. The general's movements were slower now. His energy blade felt heavy in his hands. He had cuts on his arms and legs where Taman had struck through gaps in his armor. Nothing fatal, but they hurt and they bled. And they showed that the human could reach him whenever he wanted. Taman, in contrast, had only a few scratches. He had been hit a few times. It was impossible to fight someone like Drexar without taking some damage. But nothing serious. Nothing that slowed him down. Then came the moment everyone would remember. Drexar made a desperate attack, putting everything into one final strike. His energy blade came down with all his remaining strength. It would have killed almost anyone. Taman moved inside the strike closer than seemed possible. In one smooth motion, he grabbed Drexar's sword arm at the wrist and elbow. He twisted, using the general's own strength against him. There was a sharp crack, the sound of something breaking. Drexar's energy blade fell from his numb fingers. Before the general could recover, Taman swept his legs out from under him. All 4 meters and several hundred kilograms of Velkari warrior crashed to the ground. Taman's knife appeared at Drexar's throat faster than most people could follow. The Colosseum was silent. No one could believe what they were seeing. General Drexar, undefeated in 300 battles, was on his back with a human's blade at his throat. Taman could have killed him. Everyone knew it. One quick motion and Drexar would be dead. But Taman did not strike. Instead, he spoke quietly, just loud enough for the general to hear. You fought with courage and skill. Your empire should be proud of you. Then he stood up, pulled his knife away, and offered his hand to help Drexar rise. The general stared at the offered hand in shock. Mercy from a human? After such a fight? Slowly, Drexar took the hand. Taman helped him stand. The general looked down at the small human who had defeated him and saw something in those cold eyes that he had not expected. Respect. The crowd did not know how to react. Some began to cheer. They had just witnessed an incredible fight. Others sat in stunned silence. Emperor Carvos's face was dark with anger. This was not how it was supposed to go. Taman bowed slightly to Drexar, then walked toward the exit. As he passed beneath the royal box, his eyes met Lyra's again. She was crying, though she did not know why. Maybe it was relief that the fight was over. Maybe it was shame at what her empire had tried to do. Or maybe it was fear, because she had just seen what humans were capable of. One thing was certain. Everything had changed. Earth had its victory. Now the real test would begin. The palace was quiet that night, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of silence that came before a storm. Emperor Carvos sat in his private chamber, staring at nothing. His advisors stood around him, waiting nervously. No one wanted to speak first. Finally, the emperor spoke. His voice was soft, which was more frightening than if he had shouted. That human defeated Drexar, our greatest champion, lost to a creature half his size. He stood up slowly. The entire galaxy watched. They saw our warrior kneel to a human. One of the advisors, braver than the others, spoke carefully. My lord, the tradition is clear. The human won the duel fairly. We must honor the outcome and negotiate with Earth. Carvos turned to look at the advisor. The emperor's eyes were cold. Honor? You speak to me of honor? That human used smoke and tricks. He fought like a coward, not a warrior. There was no honor in that victory. Another advisor stepped forward. But my lord, the rules did not forbid his tactics. He fought within the boundaries of the duel. Silence. Carvos's voice was sharp now. I will not let this defeat stand. Send word to the Silent Blades. They are to eliminate the human before he leaves this planet. Make it look like an accident. A malfunction, a random attack, I do not care. Just make sure he does not return to Earth alive. The advisors looked at each other nervously. The Silent Blades were the Empire's most skilled assassins. If they were sent after Taman, it would be a clear violation of the treaty and the sacred tradition of the duel. And prepare the fleet, Carvos continued. We attack Earth in 1 week. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who humiliate the Velkari Empire. In the corridor outside the chamber, Princess Lyra pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding. She had come to speak with her father about the duel, to try to understand his plans. Instead, she had heard him order murder and war. She felt sick. This was wrong. The human had won fairly. Yes, he had used unusual tactics, but that was not against the rules. Her father was letting his pride destroy their empire's honor. And thousands, maybe millions, would die because of it. Lyra walked quickly through the palace halls, her mind racing. What could she do? She was just the princess. No one would listen to her if she objected. Her father would see it as weakness, as betrayal even. But she could not let this happen. Not when she knew the truth. She had seen what Taman could do. She had read the reports. If her father broke the treaty and attacked Earth, the humans would respond. And they would not respond with honor duels. They would respond with the full force of their military. Lyra made a decision that terrified her. She would warn the human, even if it meant betraying her own father, her own empire. Because some things were more important than loyalty to a tyrant, she changed into simple clothes covering her royal markings. Then she slipped out of the palace through passages she had discovered as a child. The guards never noticed her leaving. The human delegation was staying in the diplomatic quarter of the city. Lyra knew the building. She had studied all the layouts as part of her training. She approached carefully, aware that there would be security. When she knocked on the main door, it opened almost immediately. Ambassador Jiwan stood there, her hand near a weapon. She looked surprised to see the princess standing in her doorway in plain clothes. "Princess Lyra? What are you doing here?" "I need to speak with Taemin, please. It is urgent." Jiwan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Come inside, quickly." The building was quiet. Most of the diplomatic staff were already asleep. Jiwan led Lyra to a small meeting room. A few minutes later, Taemin entered. He had changed out of his armor and wore simple clothes. The cuts and bruises from the fight were visible on his arms. "Princess," he said, his voice neutral. "Why are you here?" Lyra took a deep breath. "My father is going to kill you. He has sent the Silent Blades, our best assassins. They will attack tonight or tomorrow, and then he plans to invade Earth regardless of the duel's outcome." Taemin's expression did not change much, but something flickered in his eyes. Not surprise, more like confirmation. "I expected something like this," he said quietly. "You expected it?" Lyra stared at him. "Then why did you stay? Why did you not leave immediately after the duel?" "Because running would have shown fear, and fear encourages aggression." Taemin sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. "Also, I wanted to see if anyone in your empire still valued honor. Now I know. At least one person does." Lyra sat down, feeling strange. "You are not surprised that I came to warn you? I am the daughter of your enemy." "You are the daughter of an emperor," Taemin corrected. "That does not make you my enemy unless you choose to be. And you chose differently tonight." Ambassador Jiwan leaned against the wall. "This changes everything. If the emperor breaks the treaty, Earth will consider it an act of war. Our fleet will respond." "Your fleet is already here," Lyra said. "Is it not? You knew my father might betray the treaty, so you prepared." Taemin nodded slowly. "Earth's third fleet is waiting just outside the system. If we do not report in every 12 hours, they will assume we are dead or captured. Then they will come. But thousands will die," Lyra whispered. "On both sides." "Yes," Taemin agreed. "That is why I hope to avoid it. War should always be the last choice, not the first." They talked for another hour, planning. When Lyra finally left to return to the palace, she felt different. For the first time in her life, she had made a choice that went against everything she had been taught, and it felt right. The next night, the Silent Blades attacked. They were the best assassins in the Empire, trained since childhood to kill without being seen or heard. They entered the diplomatic building through hidden routes, moving like shadows. But Taemin had prepared. He had expected them. The building was full of sensors and traps that the assassins did not know about. When they tried to reach Taemin's room, they found it empty. And when they tried to leave, they found themselves surrounded. Taemin had not killed them. He had captured them, along with all their equipment and communication devices. Evidence that the Emperor had violated the treaty. Evidence that could be broadcast across the entire galaxy. When Emperor Carvos learned that the assassination had failed, his rage was terrible.
He summoned Lyra to his throne room.
Somehow he had discovered that she had left the palace that night. Somehow he knew she had warned the human. "You betrayed me," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You betrayed your own empire for a human." Lyra stood straight, meeting her father's eyes. "I did not betray the empire. I tried to save it from your pride. You were going to destroy everything we stand for. Honor, tradition, the sacred rules of combat. That human won fairly. You should have accepted it, fairly." Carvos stepped down from his throne. "He used tricks and cowardice." "He used intelligence," Lyra countered. "Something you seem to have forgotten. Father, I have read the reports about humans. If you attack Earth, you will lose. Their military is built for this kind of war. They have been preparing for decades. They do not fight for glory or honor, they fight to win, and they are very, very good at it. Silence. I will not hear another word." Carvos pointed at his guards. "Arrest her. Lock her in her chambers. She's no longer my daughter. She is a traitor." As the guards moved toward her, Lyra made another choice. She ran. She was fast and knew the palace better than anyone. She made it to a side entrance and fled into the night, leaving behind everything she had ever known. Behind her, alarms began to sound. Her father's voice echoed through the palace speakers, declaring her a traitor and ordering her capture. But Lyra did not stop running. She ran toward the diplomatic quarter, toward the only people who might help her now. She ran toward the humans. Lyra ran through the dark streets, her breath coming in gasps. Behind her, she could hear the sounds of pursuit. Heavy footsteps shouted orders, the hum of military vehicles. Her father had sent his soldiers after her. The entire city was looking for the traitor princess. She took a sharp turn into a narrow alley, trying to remember the fastest route to the diplomatic quarter. Her royal training had included map memorization, but she had never expected to use it while running for her life. Every shadow seemed to hide enemies. Every sound made her jump. A patrol appeared at the end of the street ahead. Lyra ducked behind a waste container, her heart pounding so hard she thought they must be able to hear it. The soldiers walked past slowly, their weapons ready, scanning the darkness with their night vision equipment. When they were gone, Lyra continued running. She was getting close to the diplomatic quarter now. Just a few more blocks, but as she turned the corner, she almost ran straight into another patrol. They saw her immediately. There. "The princess! Stop her!" Lyra ran faster than she ever had before. Shots fired behind her, energy bolts hitting the walls near her head. She was not trained for combat like her father's soldiers. She would not last long if they caught her. Then someone grabbed her arm and pulled her sideways into a dark doorway. She almost screamed, but a hand covered her mouth. A familiar quiet voice spoke in her ear. "Stay silent. Do not move." It was Taman. He had found her. He pressed them both back into the shadows of the doorway, his body positioned to shield her from view. The patrol ran past, their footsteps echoing in the night. They did not see the two figures hidden in the darkness. When the soldiers were gone, Taman released her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Lyra shook her head, still trying to catch her breath. "How did you find me?" "We have been monitoring your father's communications. When he declared you a traitor, we knew you would come to us. I came to meet you." He touched a device on his wrist. "Hanul, I have the princess. Bringing her in now." A voice crackled back through the device. "Understood. But Taman, we have a problem. The Emperor has sent a full battalion to surround the diplomatic quarter. They are not letting anyone in or out. They know she is heading here." Taman was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "Can you get the shuttle to the old industrial sector? The abandoned starport there? It will be dangerous. That area is full of patrols now, but yes, I can do it." "Good, we will meet you there in 1 hour." Taman turned to Lyra. "Can you run for another hour? The path will not be easy." Lyra straightened up, forcing strength into her tired legs. "I can do it." They moved through the city like ghosts. Taman knew how to avoid patrols, how to use the shadows, how to move without making sound. Several times they had to hide while soldiers passed within meters of them. Each time Lyra watched Taman with amazement. He was completely calm, his breathing steady, his movements precise. At one point, a patrol spotted them. Taman reacted instantly, pulling Lyra behind cover as shots rang out. Then he did something that made Lyra's blood run cold. He threw a small device toward the patrol. It exploded with a loud bang and a flash of light. When the soldiers could see again, Taman was among them. Lyra watched from behind the corner. Taman moved through the patrol like a storm. He did not kill them. He did not need to. Each soldier he touched fell down, knocked unconscious or unable to move. It took less than 30 seconds. Then he was back at her side, barely breathing hard. "We need to keep moving. They will send more." They reached the industrial sector as dawn began to break. The old starport was a maze of abandoned buildings and rusted equipment. It had been shut down years ago when the new spaceport was built. Now it was just empty and forgotten, except it was not empty. As they approached, Taman suddenly pulled Lyra down behind a pile of old cargo containers. She started to ask why, but he put a finger to his lips, then she heard it. Footsteps. Many footsteps. The Emperor had sent forces here too. Of course he had. He knew about the old starport. It was an obvious escape route. Taman touched his wrist device. "Hanul, the landing zone is compromised. At least 50 soldiers, maybe more. Can you provide a distraction?" "Already on it." "Get ready to run." A few minutes later, there was an explosion on the other side of the starport. Not close enough to hurt anyone, but loud and bright enough to get everyone's attention. The soldiers ran toward the explosion, thinking it was their target. "Now," Taman said, and they ran toward the center of the starport. But they had only made it halfway when more soldiers appeared. These ones had been smarter, staying behind to watch for exactly this kind of trick. And there were too many to fight. "Stay behind me," Taman said. He pulled out his weapons and prepared to fight. Lyra could see in his eyes that he knew this would be difficult. Maybe impossible. The soldiers opened fire. Taman moved, using pieces of old equipment as cover, returning fire with precision. Each shot he took hit a target, a weapon, an armor joint, something that would stop a soldier without killing them. But there were so many, and he was just one person. Then Ambassador Jiwan's voice came over the communication device. Taman, we cannot wait any longer. The main fleet knows about the situation. They are demanding we evacuate immediately, or they will come in force. That would mean war. Understood, Taman replied calmly, even as he dodged another burst of fire. Get everyone else out. I will hold them here and find another way off planet. Taman, no, Jiwan started, but he cut her off. That is an order, Ambassador. Protect the princess. Make sure she gets to safety, and tell Earth what the Emperor has done. Lyra grabbed his arm. You will die here. Taman looked at her. For the first time, she saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. He looked tired, sad, but determined. Maybe, but you will live, and you can tell the galaxy the truth about what happened here. That is more important than one soldier's life. Before Lyra could argue, something appeared in the sky. A small ship flying low and fast. It was not a Valkyrie design. The human shuttle had arrived. Hanul's voice came over the speaker, sounding stressed but focused. I am coming in hot. Taman, you have 30 seconds to get to the landing zone. The shuttle opened fire on the soldiers, forcing them to take cover. Taman grabbed Lyra and ran toward the landing zone. Shots followed them, hitting the ground around their feet. One grazed Taman's shoulder, but he did not slow down. The shuttle landed hard, its door already opening. Taman pushed Lyra toward it. Go, now! Lyra climbed aboard and turned to help Taman up. But he was still outside, firing at the approaching soldiers. He was holding them back, giving the shuttle time to prepare for takeoff. Taman, Hanul shouted from the pilot seat. We have to go. More soldiers were coming. Dozens of them. They were closing in from all sides. Taman threw his last smoke grenade and sprinted for the shuttle. He dove through the door just as Hanul lifted off. Shots hammered against the shuttle's hull as it climbed into the sky. They had made it. Barely. But they had made it. Lyra sat on the floor of the shuttle, breathing hard. Taman was next to her, checking his wounds. His shoulder was bleeding, but not badly. He had been lucky. Thank you, Lyra said quietly. You could have left me. It would have been safer for you. Taman looked at her. We do not leave people behind. That is not the human way. As the shuttle climbed higher, leaving Valkyria Prime behind, Lyra looked out the window at her home planet. She might never see it again. Her father had declared her a traitor. Her old life was over, but maybe she thought that was not such a bad thing. Maybe it was time for a new life. A better one. The human ship Horizon's Edge drifted through hyperspace, traveling away from Valkyrie space toward neutral territory. Inside, Lyra sat in a small guest room, staring at the walls. Everything had happened so fast. Just days ago, she had been a princess with a clear future. Now she was a fugitive with nowhere to go. She had no family anymore. Her father had called her a traitor. Her friends back home, if she even had any real friends, would not be allowed to contact her. Everything she had known, everything she had been taught to believe, was gone. There was a knock on her door. Come in, she said quietly. Ambassador G1 entered, carrying a tray of food. You need to eat. You have not had anything since we left Valkyria Prime. Lyra looked at the food but did not feel hungry. What will happen to me now? She asked. G1 sat down across from her. That is complicated. You are the daughter of an enemy leader. Technically, you could be seen as a prisoner of war, but you also helped us, warned us about the assassination attempt. That counts for something. So I am stuck between two worlds, Lyra said. Not truly Valkyrie anymore, but not human either. For now, yes. But that could change. It depends on what you want to do next. Before Lyra could answer, the door opened again. Taman walked in, his shoulder bandaged but otherwise looking fine. He had changed into clean clothes and looked more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Ambassador, may I speak with the princess alone? He asked. G1 nodded and left, closing the door behind her. Taman pulled up a chair and sat down. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. I'm afraid of you, she said. I have been afraid since the moment I first saw you. Even now, knowing that you saved my life, I am still afraid. Taman nodded slowly. Good, you should be afraid of what I can do. I am afraid of it too. Lyra looked surprised. You are afraid of yourself? Every warrior should be. The skills I have, the things I can do, they are dangerous. Not just to enemies, but to anyone around me if I lose control. That fear keeps me careful. It keeps me from using violence unless there is no other choice. But my father's warriors are not afraid of their own power, Lyra said. They celebrate it. They want to be feared, I know. And that is the difference between us. Taman leaned back in his chair. On Earth, we teach our warriors to be reluctant. The best soldiers are the ones who understand what war really costs. They know that every battle, even a victory, brings pain and loss. So they only fight when they must. Lyra thought about this. It was so different from everything she had been taught. In Velkari culture, warriors were heroes. Battle was glorious. Strength was everything. But Taman was describing warriors who saw battle as something sad, something to be avoided. Do you have family on Earth? She asked, curious about this strange human. Taman's expression softened slightly. I have a younger sister. Her name is Dayon. She is studying to be a diplomat like Ambassador Jiwan. She is very smart, much smarter than me. You fight for her, Lyra realized, not for glory or honor. You fight to protect her. I fight for her, for my friends, for all the people on Earth who just want to live their lives in peace. That is what makes the fighting bearable, knowing who I am protecting. Lyra felt something shift inside her. She had never thought about war that way before. She had been taught that conquest was natural, that the strong should rule the weak. But Taman fought not to conquer but to defend. It was a completely different way of thinking. Over the next few days, Lyra learned more about humans. She talked with Hanul, who explained human military tactics. She studied Earth's history, reading about countless wars and the lessons humans had learned from them. She began to understand why humans fought the way they did. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other before they reached the stars. They had learned efficiency, adaptability, and the importance of protecting civilians. They had learned that honor in battle meant nothing if innocent people died. They had learned that the goal of war was not glory but peace. One evening, Hanul showed Lyra intercepted messages from Velkari space. The news was not good. Emperor Karvos had declared full war against Earth. The fleet was mobilizing. But there were other messages, too. Encrypted communications from Velkari nobles and military officers who disagreed with the Emperor's decision. There is resistance forming, Hanul explained. Not everyone in your empire supports what your father is doing. Many Velkari were shocked when he violated the sacred duel tradition. They see it as dishonorable. How many? Lyra asked. How many oppose him? Hard to say. Maybe 20% of the military, several noble houses. It is not enough to stop him, but it is something. Lyra stared at the messages. People in her own empire were standing up against her father. They were risking everything because they believed the Emperor was wrong. And suddenly she saw a possibility. What if we helped them? She said, what if we supported the resistance? If there was a civil war in the Empire, my father could not attack Earth. He would be too busy fighting his own people. Hanul looked thoughtful. It could work, but it would be dangerous, and many Velkari would die in a civil war. Many more will die if my father attacks Earth, Lyra pointed out. At least this way, we might be able to change the Empire from within. Make it better, more like what it should be. She brought the idea to Taman. He listened carefully, asking questions. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. It is risky, he finally said. We would be choosing sides in an internal Velkari conflict. Earth's government might not approve, but it could prevent a war, Lyra argued. Is that not worth the risk? Taman smiled slightly. You sound like my sister. She always says that preventing a war is worth any risk. He stood up. Let me talk to Ambassador Jiwan. If she agrees, we can try to contact the resistance. The meeting with Jiwan was long and intense. The ambassador was worried about the political implications, but in the end she agreed. Preventing a full-scale war between Earth and the Velkari Empire was too important, even if it meant taking risks. They sent encrypted messages to the resistance leaders offering to help. At first there was suspicion. Why would humans want to help a Velkari resistance? Was this a trick? But then Lyra recorded a message. She explained who she was, what her father had done, and why she had chosen to help the humans. She talked about honor and tradition, about the values the Velkari Empire was supposed to represent. She asked the resistance to let her join them, to let her fight for a better empire. When the resistance leaders saw the message, everything changed. The daughter of Emperor Carvos denouncing her father and calling for reform, it was exactly the symbol they needed. A response came within days. The resistance was meeting on a border world called Thrandor. They invited Lyra to join them. And they invited the humans too as advisors and allies. As the Horizon's Edge changed course toward Thrandor, Lyra stood in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Timon came to stand beside her. "Are you ready for this?" he asked. "Once we arrive, there is no going back. You will be leading a rebellion against your own father." Lyra thought about her father, about the empire she had grown up in. Then she thought about everything she had learned from the humans, about fighting for peace instead of glory, about protecting people instead of conquering them, about being afraid of your own power and using it carefully. "I'm ready," she said. "My father taught me that strength is everything, but you showed me something different. True strength is not about power. It is about choosing to do what is right even when it is hard." Timon nodded. "Your father is wrong about many things, but he was right about one thing. You are strong enough to make the hard choices." Lyra smiled, her first real smile since leaving her homeworld. "Then let us go show the galaxy what true Velkari strength looks like." The stars rushed past as the ship traveled toward Thrandor, toward the resistance, toward a future that nobody could predict. But for the first time in days, Lyra felt hope. Maybe she could not go back to her old life, but maybe she could build something better. The planet Thrandor was cold and rocky, nothing like the beautiful crystal cities of Velkaria Prime. The Resistance had set up their base in an old mining facility, hidden from Imperial scanners. When the human ship landed, dozens of Velkari warriors came out to meet them. They looked tough and determined, but also tired. These were people who had given up everything to fight against their own emperor. Lyra stepped off the ship first. The Velkari warriors stared at her in silence. She was still wearing the simple clothes she had escaped in, no royal jewels or fancy decorations. But they all knew who she was, the princess who had betrayed her father, the symbol of their rebellion. An older Velkari stepped forward. His armor was scratched and dented from many battles. "Princess Lyra," he said, bowing slightly. "I am Commander Wolren. I served under your grandfather before he died. It is strange to see you here." "It is strange to be here," Lyra admitted, "but necessary. My father has forgotten what the Empire should stand for. He breaks treaties, orders assassinations, and prepares for war based on pride rather than wisdom. This must stop." Timon and Hanul walked up behind her. The Velkari warriors tensed when they saw the humans, their hands moving toward weapons. The memory of Timon's victory over General Drexar was fresh in everyone's mind. "These humans are my allies," Lyra said firmly. "They saved my life. And they can help us. Help us!" Another warrior stepped forward, younger and angrier. "Help us how?" "By teaching us to fight like cowards. We saw how that human defeated Drexar. Tricks and smoke bombs. No honor," Timon spoke calmly. "I defeated Drexar because I fought smarter, not harder. If you want to beat the Emperor's forces, you need to do the same. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Traditional honor will not save you. Intelligence and tactics will." The young warrior looked angry, but Commander Wolren held up his hand. "The human speaks truth even if we do not like hearing it. We have already lost 3 battles against the Emperor's forces because we fought the traditional way. Maybe it is time to try something different." Over the next few days, the resistance leaders met constantly. They were not a unified force. Different groups had different goals. Some wanted to reform the empire and make it more democratic. Others wanted to break it apart completely. Some trusted Lyra, while others suspected she was a spy. It was chaos. Timon watched all of this and finally spoke to Commander Wolren privately. "You need a victory. Something dramatic that will unite everyone and show the galaxy that you are serious. Right now, you are just scattered groups arguing with each other. You need to become a real force, and what do you suggest?" Wolren asked. "There is an orbital fortress in the next system. Gate Station 7. The Emperor uses it to control all traffic through this sector. If you could capture it, you would control a major trade route, and it would send a message that you are powerful enough to threaten the Empire's infrastructure." Wolren looked shocked. "Gate Station 7? That fortress has 5,000 troops, heavy shields, and enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. It is impossible to take." "Impossible with a direct attack, yes," Timon agreed. "But what if we did not attack directly? What if we infiltrated the station? disabled its defenses from inside, and then gave the garrison a chance to surrender peacefully. You want to sneak into the most heavily guarded fortress in the sector? Not sneak, walk in. With Princess Lyra. The plan was risky, but it was the kind of bold move the resistance needed. Lyra would go to the station claiming she had escaped from the humans and needed protection. Once inside, she would help Taemin's team infiltrate through her security clearance. They would disable the station's weapons and shields and then offer the garrison a choice: join the resistance or be left defenseless when the resistance fleet arrived. It took 3 days to prepare. Taemin selected a small team of resistance fighters and began training them in human special operations tactics. At first, the Valkyrie warriors were skeptical. They were used to direct combat, not sneaking around. But as they trained, they began to see the value in what Taemin was teaching. How to move silently, how to disable enemies without killing them, how to use the environment as a weapon, how to think several steps ahead of your opponent. One of the fighters, a young half-Valkyrie named Myung-soo, picked up the techniques quickly. He had human ancestors and seemed to understand the human way of thinking better than the others. Taemin spent extra time training him, and Myung-soo became the bridge between human and Valkyrie military thinking. Finally, the day came. Lyra, Taemin, Myung-soo, and 3 other fighters boarded a small shuttle disguised as an Imperial transport. Hanil flew them toward Gate Station 7. As they approached, Lyra sent a message claiming she had escaped from human captivity and needed immediate assistance. The station commander was suspicious at first. But Lyra's codes were genuine, and she was the Emperor's daughter. After several tense minutes, they were given permission to dock. Lyra walked off the shuttle alone, playing her role perfectly. She looked tired and scared, like someone who had been through a terrible experience. The station guards surrounded her immediately, escorting her to the commander's office. While everyone's attention was on the princess, Taemin and his team slipped out of the shuttle through a maintenance hatch. Using Lyra's security access, they moved through the station's service tunnels. No one noticed them. The station commander, a loyal servant of the Emperor, questioned Lyra about her escape. She told him a carefully prepared story about being held prisoner and finding a way to steal a shuttle. He seemed to believe her, but he was not taking chances. He ordered her confined to guest quarters under guard until he could verify her story with the capital. That was exactly what they wanted. While Lyra kept the commander distracted, Taemin's team reached the station's power core. Myung-soo proved his worth here, using both his Valkyrie knowledge of Imperial systems and his human learned skills to disable the station's weapons and shields without triggering alarms. At the same time, Hanul and the resistance fleet moved into position just outside the station's sensor range. Everything was ready. Then Taemin activated the station's communication system, broadcasting on all channels. His voice echoed through every corridor, every room, every space on the station. Attention all personnel of Gate Station 7. This is a message from the Valkyrie resistance. Your weapons are offline. Your shields are down. A resistance fleet is approaching. You have 2 choices. Surrender peacefully and join us in reforming the Empire, or be destroyed when our fleet arrives. You have 10 minutes to decide. Chaos erupted on the station. Officers shouted orders. Technicians tried desperately to restore power to the weapons. The commander rushed to the communication center, trying to understand what had happened. Then Lyra's voice came over the speakers. Brothers and sisters of the Empire, this is Princess Lyra. I know what you have been told about me, that I am a traitor, that I have abandoned our people. But the truth is I am trying to save them. My father has broken our most sacred traditions. He violated the duel with the human champion. He ordered assassinations. He is leading us into a war we cannot win. Please join us. Help us make the Empire what it should be. Strong, yes, but also honorable. A place where tradition means something. There was silence. Then one by one, soldiers began putting down their weapons. Not all of them, some remained loyal to the Emperor. But more than half the garrison chose to stand down. The station commander was one of those who refused. He tried to activate the self-destruct system, willing to destroy the entire station rather than let it fall to the resistance. But Taemin had anticipated this. He appeared in the command center, having moved through the ventilation system, and stopped the commander before he could complete the sequence. The fight was brief. The commander was a skilled warrior, but Taemin had trained for exactly this kind of situation. Within seconds, the commander was unconscious on the floor, and the self-destruct was permanently disabled. When the resistance fleet arrived, they found Gate Station 7 waiting for them peacefully. The fortress that was supposed to be impossible to capture had fallen without a single death. It was exactly the kind of victory the resistance needed. That night, Lyra stood in the station's command center, looking out at the stars. She was no longer just a princess or a fugitive. She was a leader of a rebellion. The weight of that responsibility was heavy, but she was ready to carry it. Taman found her there. "You did well today," he said. "We did well," Lyra corrected. "I could not have done this without you. Without human help." "Maybe," Taman allowed. "But you are the one they follow. You are the symbol they believe in. That power comes from you, not from us." Lyra smiled. "Then let us use that power wisely. For both our peoples, the rebellion had begun, and with it the hope for a better future." News of the victory at Gate Station 7 spread across the galaxy like wildfire. System after system began declaring support for the resistance. Noble houses that had been quietly unhappy with Emperor Carvos now spoke openly against him. Military units defected. Planets refused to send troops or supplies to the Imperial fleet. The Velkari Empire was tearing itself apart, but Emperor Carvos still controlled the core worlds and the majority of the fleet. He was not defeated yet, and in his rage and desperation he made a terrible decision. He would crush the resistance at Thrandor and execute his daughter publicly. Then, to unite his remaining forces and distract from the Civil War, he would invade Earth. Earth's defense fleet received the intelligence reports and moved to intercept. They could not let the Emperor reach Earth. Ambassador Jiwan sent urgent messages back home, warning that Galactic War was about to begin. The messages all said the same thing. Millions would die on both sides. Taman studied the tactical displays aboard Gate Station 7. Two massive fleets were moving toward each other. The Emperor's forces were larger, but Earth's fleet had better technology and more experienced commanders. It would be a close battle, and when it was over, even the winners would have lost so much. "There has to be another way," he said quietly. Hanul looked up from the sensor display. "What are you thinking?" "The Emperor is the problem. Not the Velkari people, not even most of his military, just him. If we could remove him from power before the fleets engage, we could stop the war." "Remove him? You mean assassinate him?" Hanul shook her head. "His flagship is in the center of the fleet, protected by hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers. It would be suicide to try." "Maybe," Taman agreed. "But less people would die than in a full fleet battle. Sometimes one life is worth risking to save millions." Lyra had been listening to their conversation. She stepped forward. "I am coming with you." "No," Taman said immediately. "This is different from Gate Station 7. This is a direct assault on the Emperor's flagship during a battle. Most of us probably will not survive." "He is my father," Lyra said firmly. "This started with my family. It should end with my family. Besides, you will need someone who knows the layout of the Imperial flagship. I grew up on that ship. I know every corridor, every secret passage." Taman wanted to argue, but he could see the determination in her eyes. She had changed from the frightened princess he had first met. She was a leader now, willing to risk everything for her people. "All right," he agreed. "But we do this my way. And if I give an order, you follow it immediately. No arguments." They assembled a small team. Myongso volunteered immediately, as did 3 other resistance fighters. Hanul would pilot them through the battle. 8 people against an entire Imperial fleet. The odds were not good. As they prepared to leave, Commander Wolrin found them. "This is madness. Let me send more troops with you." "More troops would not help," Taman said. "Speed and stealth are our only advantages. A large force would be detected immediately." Wolrin looked at Lyra. "Your Highness, you do not have to do this. The resistance needs you alive. You are our symbol, our hope for the future." "That is exactly why I must go," Lyra replied. "If I ask others to risk their lives but stay safe myself, what kind of leader am I?" "No. We do this together, or we do not do it at all." The shuttle launched into space just as the 2 fleets began to engage. Weapons fire lit up the darkness like a deadly fireworks display. Ships exploded. Fighters dodged and weaved. It was chaos on a scale almost impossible to comprehend. Hanul flew like she had been born to it, threading the shuttle through the battle. Shots passed so close they could see the energy ripple along the hull. More than once Lyra thought they were done for. But somehow Hanul kept them alive and moving forward. The flagship is ahead, Hanul announced. I see a docking port on the starboard side. It looks damaged, probably from the battle. I can put us there. Do it, Taman ordered. The landing was rough. The damaged port barely held together as they docked. But they were aboard. The team moved quickly through the corridors following Lyra's directions. She had been right. Knowing the ship's layout was crucial. They avoided main passages and used service tunnels that most crew members did not even know existed, but they could not avoid everyone. Several times they encountered Imperial guards. Taman tried to disable them quietly, but one managed to trigger an alarm before going down. Suddenly, the entire ship knew they were there. Run, Taman shouted. Get to the throne room before they can mobilize. They sprinted through the corridors. Behind them, they could hear soldiers coming. Ahead, more guards appeared. Myongsu and the other resistance fighters held them off, buying time. One by one, Taman's team fell. Each of them knew what they had signed up for. Each of them gave their lives willingly so the others could continue. Finally, only Taman, Lyra, and Myongsu remained. They burst through the doors of the Imperial throne room. Emperor Carvos sat on his throne, surrounded by his elite guard. He did not look surprised to see them. So you have come, he said calmly. My daughter, the traitor, and the human warrior who started all of this. I almost admire your courage. Almost. Father, this has to stop, Lyra pleaded. The Empire is destroying itself. Thousands have already died. Millions more will die if this continues. Please surrender. Let the resistance reform the government. You could retire with honor if you just stop fighting. Carvos laughed. Honor? You dare speak to me of honor? You who betrayed your own blood for these humans. He stood up, drawing his sword. No. I would rather die fighting than live with the shame of surrender. The elite guards attacked. They were the best warriors the Empire had produced. Tamin and Myongsu fought desperately, but they were wounded and exhausted. One guard got past Taman's defense and struck him hard. He went down, blood flowing from a wound in his side. Myongsu tried to help, but he was overwhelmed. Within moments, he too was on the ground, barely conscious. Only Lyra remained standing, and she was not a warrior. She held a pistol in shaking hands, pointing it at her father. Carvos walked toward her slowly. You do not have the strength to pull that trigger. You are weak, just like your mother was. That is why I will win. I am willing to do whatever it takes to maintain my power. You are wrong, Lyra said, her voice steady despite her fear. I learned something from the humans. True strength is not about power or dominance. It is about making the hard choices. About doing what must be done even when it breaks your heart. She pulled the trigger. Emperor Carvos fell. The throne room was silent. The elite guards stared in shock. Their emperor was dead, killed by his own daughter. Slowly they lowered their weapons. Lyra dropped the pistol and ran to Taman. He was still alive but hurt badly. Stay with me, she whispered. Please, we won. It is over. You have to stay alive to see the peace you fought for. Taman smiled weakly. Did it work? Did the fleet stand down? Hanul's voice came over the communication device. Yes, both fleets have stopped firing. They are waiting for orders. Lyra, you need to broadcast a message. Right now. Tell them the Emperor is dead and the war is over. With Taman's blood on her hands, Lyra walked to the throne room's communication system. She activated it, broadcasting to both fleets, to the entire galaxy. Her voice was tired but strong. This is Princess Lyra. Emperor Carvos is dead. I killed him not out of hate but out of necessity. The war is over. I am declaring an immediate ceasefire. All ships are to stand down. The Velkari Empire as we knew it is finished. In its place we will build something better. A federation based on cooperation, not conquest. On honor, not fear. And we will do it together, Velkari and human alike. Slowly the weapons fire stopped. Ships pulled back. Soldiers put down their guns. The war that could have destroyed billions of lives ended in that moment. Months later, Lyra stood on a stage in a new council building. Around her sat representatives from every species in the sector, including Ambassador Jiwan from Earth. They were signing the founding documents of the Velkari Federation, a new government that valued cooperation over domination. In the back of the room, Taman watched. He had survived his injuries, though recovery had taken weeks. He was leaving tomorrow, returning to Earth and to his sister. His work here was done. After the ceremony, Lyra found him. You are leaving? My part in this story is finished, Taman said. You do not need a human warrior anymore. You need diplomats and builders. People like Ambassador Jiwon and Myung-soo. They can help you build your new federation. I will never forget what you did for us, Lyra said. You taught us that strength comes in many forms. That fear can be a tool for good if used wisely. That honor means making the hard choices. Taemin smiled. And you taught me something too. That even the most terrible reputation can serve a greater purpose. Being scary kept a lot of people alive. That is worth something. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Taemin turned to leave. Wait, Lyra called after him. Will I see you again? He looked back at her. Maybe, but I hope you will not need to, because if you need me again, it means something has gone very wrong. He smiled. Build your peaceful federation, princess. Make it so warriors like me are not necessary anymore. That would be the best possible future. As Taemin walked away, Lyra understood.